Hey, everybody. Welcome. This is Lions on the Prowl, and DSA presents a question and answer session with the Hook Cam. And we want to welcome you, Hook Cam, onto the show tonight.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I know I'm kind of becoming a little bit of a familiar face in the chat or on the panel, so it'll be exciting to get some questions thrown my way. Have the spotlight. I'm ready for it.
There you go. That's going to be a good thing. So, hey, what's up there, Nomus?
Hey, what's up, DSA chat? Everybody, how y'all doing?
All right, what's up, Tim?
Not much. How's it going? Ready for some Lions draft choices and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that draft can't come soon enough. What's up, J-Mo?
What's good, man? I'm ready to talk to Hook Cam. We got to find out how to fix this terrible O-line. So, let's go.
Right.
You want to, hey, J-Mo, you want to run down who's here with us tonight so far?
All right, what's good, man? We got a lot of people in the building. Make sure you guys like that video. Jay White in the building. Detroit Drew in the building was good. Michael C in the building. Ghost Gunner in the building. Luke G's field review in the building was good. Alex Kamara, K-Man season in the building. Kool-Aid and Cornbread here as always.
Yes.
The general view in the building was good, everybody, man. What up, man? I am not the hacker. Eric Smith.
I'm not the hacker. Ryan Zarzecki, and I think I got that right. At least I hope so. Also, and that's why I wanted to grab that name, because he had tried to help me pronounce it the last time. So, okay, we're going to dive right into some questions, and I'm going to ask the first one. So, from an outsider's perspective, how good is the Lions roster as it's constituted right now before the draft?
I think that it's not as bad as, and it sounds bad again. I don't mean to throw any shade towards the Lions. The Lions fans are usually pretty chill about being like, no, we've had some bad seasons, but it's not as bad. There's definitely still some huge holes that need to be filled, and I think that there's a lot that can be done with this draft. And we start looking at the defensive pieces that you can add. But the biggest thing when I was watching film, offensive line wise, and again, this I'm rinse and repeating, right? Offensive line wise, we need better guards. You guys got to get some better guards in there. Stafford is a very legit quarterback, and he's one of my favorite guys to watch in the league. You got to get the man some protection, though. He can only do so much when he's getting sacked. So guard wise, they need some help, and then obviously defensive line wise. But the roster as much, and I guess I'm going to kind of segue this in. The roster as much to me isn't the question about the Lions. To me, it's the schematics. And when I was watching film from the start of the season, weeks 1 through 5, the Lions weren't a bad football team. And you look at their record, and I think they were 2-0-1 after 3 weeks. And I'm watching it, and the schematics of it as far as third down, and that's a big thing for me, is bringing pressure on third down. And this league isn't built with the likes of the great Giants team, the Giants team that beat the Pats in the Super Bowl. That was a great 4-man rush football team that you really didn't need to bring any other heat. Well, in today's NFL, you got to bring more than 4, got to bring more than 5. You look what the Chiefs and the Patriots did the last 2 years in the Super Bowl. They were great at blitzing on third downs in critical situations. That, to me, is one of the biggest things with this next season for the Lions. It's how Patricia is going to be able to mix in some fire zones, mix in some heat, and how Corey Unland's going to be able to help bring that out. But the roster overall, yeah, there's some holes that need to be filled, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to go to number one. Tim, what question do you have for the Hook Cam?
Okay, as far as the Lions running game, do you think that Carry-On is really going to be able to carry that running game for the Lions?
I think it's interesting because just a little bit of background on me, and I think that everybody knows at this point, but I coached college ball and I coached offensive line. The running back to me is the final cherry on top for what makes a great running game. Besides that, you need to have dominant center and guards, and you need to be smart about where you set your double teams, where you're pulling your guards, where are your strengths and weaknesses on that offensive line. I think that Kerryon Johnson is a very serviceable back, and I think that the biggest thing for him is being able to stay healthy, right? And that's something that we've seen throughout the last season. But again, it's just that health. But what they need to do, in my opinion, is that you just got to be smarter with how you're running the rock. Like, they're going to play the Packers twice a year, and the Packers run just straight up bear front. And a bear front's going to be a nose tackle that's head up on the center, 2-3 techs, which is going to be 2 defensive linemen that are on the outside shades of the guards. And then you're going to have 2 other cats, 2 other edge defenders, as they call them today, outside of the tackles. And so what you can do with that, like if you just run inside zone and power against that, you're running your head against a wall. You got to be smart with how you run your wide zone. How are we going to get the edge of this defense? And how are we going to put that backer in a pickle? Because they're only going to have one Mike backer able to bring a safety down. But again, I think I'm getting too far into the schematics of it now. But, guards, you got to build inside out the offensive line, and then that backer, that running back's really the cherry on top to everything. I hope that answered the question. Sorry, went down a rabbit hole.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Nah, that was a great explanation. I like how you said that you have to run more smartly, and that's what the Lions, it seems like no matter how much talent we have, unless we got the greatest running back ever, Barry Sanders, we can't run the football because we don't know how to do it, and we always run and dive plays no matter what the coverage is. And Matt Patricia is going to have to work on a way to find a way to do that better, because sometimes it's not really about the players, but just like you said, the schematics. Why we can't run the football, because we've had talented running backs and we still can't run the football. It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and you bring up Barry Sanders, and I actually did. I actually went back and watched a lot of Barry Sanders tape because I really wanted to understand what put him above. Because when you look at Barry Sanders, you're like, his offensive line wasn't like unreal. And really what they did with Barry Sanders, it's like, let's hand the ball off to him on a stretch or a wide zone, and let's just let him go. This dude's one of the top 3 most athletic player in NFL history. Just let him go. Get him in space and let him do his thing. Unfortunately, there's probably not going to be another player like Barry Sanders. So you have to help out your running backs, and it's foolish to sit there and just kind of throw them out to the wolves like that.
Hook, did you know during that time, there was 3 years when Barry Sanders was running, that we lost 2 offensive line, one to a paralyzing injury. He could never play again, Mike Utley, and Eric Andelsick, who was mowing his lawn, and a semi-truck ran him over.
Jesus, talk about like Detroit Lions luck right there, man. That's tough.
Andelsick was one of the strongest linemen in football at the time.
That's wild.
And so that's why the offensive line was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's just bad. That's horrible luck, man. That's so tough.
They had to move Kevin Glover to center because of Utley's injury.
That's wild. That's going through practice and like going through your week. Like as a coach, every practice, I'm just holding my breath, hoping that nobody gets injured because of like you go into a game with like. Obviously, you got your starting 5, and you got 2 guys who you're like, I can rotate these guys in and be comfortable. But like as soon as you get past those first, that first guy goes in and you rotate him, you're still a little nervous. He doesn't get all the starter reps in practice. He doesn't get all the reps, and you're kind of holding your breath. But dealing with injuries is the absolute worst, and it's never going to go away. You're always going to have to deal with injuries.
It was amazing at the time. Nomas, do you have a question for Hook Camp?
Yes, I want to get his perception. What do he believe is the most improved part of the team before the draft right now? If you had to take an examination, what you think was the most improved portion of our team, whether it be on the offensive side of the ball or the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's again, it really depends on the scheme. I think that defensively is where I've seen the most improvement. I was going to say production improvement. You bring in a guy like Daron Harmon, who's a very rangy safety. I watched him play a ton with New England. And he's a good football player, man. And he just never really got those starting reps. Obviously because New England's got, Devin McCourty, and the system that they run kind of differs, but I think him in a starting role is going to be really, really good for Detroit. Jamie Collins is just an athletic freak of a linebacker. And one thing that he does very, very well, which as a Detroit kind of, Detroit's, like I said before the chat, like Detroit's kind of becoming a team that I'm very closely paying attention to. It's really positive to see a guy like Jamie Collins get brought in, because in New England, he was one of those guys that, you have looping on twist, that you have bringing pressure. He's really good at rushing the quarterback and finding a way to be effective defensively, and whether that's picking a ball off, whether that's looping on a blitz, whether that's eating up a blocker and jumping on a grenade for your guys, like he's really good at that. So I think that if they utilize him in the right way, that's going to be a really major impact. And then you have a guy like Danny Shelton. Danny Shelton is coming off of probably his best year in the NFL with New England, and that was one of the things that I remember last season. Is I really wanted New England to bring Danny Shelton back, because I remember watching him at UW, and I was going to college up at Oregon at the time, and I'd watch a decent amount of Danny Shelton tape, and I loved him as a prospect, and he kind of went to Cleveland and didn't really do much. When he got traded to New England, they really refined his game, and it wasn't necessarily that he was going to be this penetrating, dominant defensive tackle. But what he was going to do is he was going to eat up space, and he was going to make, lanes for backers to run through for guys to fit gaps. And I think you have kind of those three pieces that are all coming together. And I think it's really, really positive for the Lions defensively, which clearly that's a problem for Detroit. The offense is going to figure itself out, right? And we'll get into Matty Stafford, I'm sure, but Stafford and that offense, they're going to figure themselves out. They're going to put up points. That's not going to be a problem. It's about getting the opposing offense 3 and outs. Got to be great on third down. Got to limit big plays. But defensively, I think I've seen the most improvement pre-draft. Hopefully, they address that during the draft as well. Okay,
we have a question, and it's been persistent in the chat. So I don't know how much you know about this, but there's a rumor about Jaguars Leonard Fournette to the Lions from the Jags for maybe a draft pick. Don't know what the actual trade is. What do you think about Leonard Fournette?
I kind of go back to the point I made before, where like that running back should be the cherry on top. And I think Leonard Fournette's a good back. Don't get me wrong. Do I think that he's going to change this running game from being it's okay to, wow, the Lions got a running game? No, I think that Kerryon Johnson's going to be able to do exactly what you want. I don't think that should be a high priority for the Lions. If it's just a deal that you're like, that's just such a bargain, I can't pass that up, then I get it. But I don't think that Leonard Fournette is necessarily he's not the missing piece here, if that makes sense.
Right. I think that too. What do you think? What do you think, JMO?
I was about to say, I don't think, he's nowhere near the missing piece, but he's better than what we got. And I'm not talking about Kerryon, I'm talking about our other back. Besides Kerryon, we really don't have any good running backs at all. On the team. So if you could get him for a low pick, I'll take him. But it's not like he's not gonna change our running game. I know that. That's not what I'm expecting. I'm expecting him to be solid and us to have Kerryon. We don't really have a second running back. I know what people might think what they want about Kerryon, but we don't have another number 2 running back. We got guys like J.D. McKissick who catch passes.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is that like you got to have a backfield that complements itself. And it's like, obviously I'm going to make a lot of references to New England because that's who I'm a fan of, but New England has always been great about A, finding bargains at the running back spot, and B, having a back who can run their inside zone, run their power. And then you've got your scat back, your third down guy. James White's the guy right now. James White is a phenomenal receiver, and he's great in matchups. Leonard Fournette's not the James White. Leonard Fournette's not going to run out and run a choice and smoke a backer and pick up 8 yards on a first down on a quick dump off from Stafford. Like, Leonard Fournette's going to run north and south and pick up hard yardage. So it'd be interesting to see Kerryon and Leonard Fournette, because it's like you never have that like kind of play off from a backer's perspective. Like, oh, Leonard Fournette's in the game, they're still going to run power. I'm still going to have to take on a blocker. But again, I don't think that he's like the end all be all to okay, now they're going to average 4 yards a carry.
But see, the thing is with New England, though, people don't understand is that why they can get pretty much any back you can find and turn them into something was partially due to that offensive line, and how good Josh McDaniels is as an offensive coordinator who can set up the run. That they pretty like they leaned on LeGarrette Blount for almost forever. And they seem to have got the guys like Sony Michel, who's a very nice running back. It's just they kind of know what to do with the guys. It just comes second nature. It's more than it usually is with them, because you think of New England as a passing team, but they're so situationally good at the running game, you forget that they have a great run blocking scheme as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you bring up a really good point. And one thing that, it's McDaniels, and he gets a lot of the shine, and he should. He's a phenomenal offensive coordinator. Their offensive line coach, Dante Scarnecchia, is Probably the
A
greatest
genius.
offensive line coach in the history of the NFL.
He's a genius.
Right.
He's
Yeah.
insane. And then the running backs coach, I believe his name is Ivan Fears. He's another just stud coach. Like they have great position coaches. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And yeah, you're absolutely right. That offensive line has been really dominant, especially in the last 5-6 years. It's always been good, but especially the last 5-6 years, I've really noticed them be able to run the ball at will.
Wow.
Okay, I'm gonna go and ask this question because it's something I've been thinking about for a while now. I read an article. This is where this comes from, and it was talking about Belichick in Cleveland and how that he got rid of Bernie Kosar and how he made some decisions that they thought were questionable, and how they fired him. And then he goes to New England and basically becomes the best coach of all time, in my opinion, anyway. Do you think that Patricia has that potential, and do you think that we're giving him enough time?
The Belichick situation in Cleveland's really interesting because you look at this franchise that's just been plagued since basically their inception, and they had the grasps of the greatest coach, and I agree with you, greatest coach of all time. And really, what happened is once he let go of Bernie Kosar, the media really turned on him, and the owner got really, really pissed. Like I can't remember what the owner's name was, and I feel like a clown for not remembering it. But the owner,
Medell.
yeah, I think it was him. And I actually read Belichick's. There's a book out on Belichick that I read like my first year coach in college ball, and it goes through his whole time in Cleveland. And the media turned on him, and the owners turned on him. And it got to a point where he was like, I got to get out of here. And it was pretty mutual at that point, right? Where you're not doing what we want. You're cutting guys who are fan favorites. This isn't going to fly. Goes to the Jets. Obviously, that lasts like, 24 hours. And then he's out. And part of the deal with Belichick in New England was Robert Kraft basically was like, I'm going to give you the keys to the car. Whatever you want to do, whatever decisions you want to make, you can do. That was a major factor for him. And something that a lot of people don't know is that, like, the coaches don't always make the decisions for who to draft. There's really only a couple coaches in the league who do that. Pete Carroll's one of them, and Bill Belichick's the other one. So a lot of times you have a coach, and then you have a GM. The GM's picking up players and going to the coach and say, you figure it out. And a lot of times the coach is like, this guy doesn't fit what I want to do. This isn't what I want. That's kind of where there's this really weird disconnect between like scouts, coaches, and GM. And the GM's supposed to kind of be that middleman and mediate. But a lot of times there's a disconnect there. And scouts will be like, hey, this kid's a freak. Why aren't we picking him up? Why aren't we putting him in? Well, it's because that's not what the coach wants. And then you bring in the whole ego factor in football. And coaches have egos. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like, if a coach doesn't want to use a guy, he's not going to use a guy specifically because I didn't draft him and I don't want him. And so that's kind of how the Cleveland situation worked out with Belichick. Now, how does that work for Patricia? I think Patricia's probably getting a little bit more of a chance in Detroit, whether that's good or bad. But I'm on the same page with all of you guys. Like, there are no more excuses for you, Matt Patricia. You got the guys you want in. You got Bob Quinn, who from New England. Like, you guys should be able to work this thing out and start to be legit in the NFC North. And so far, that hasn't panned out. However, this year, you have the additions of a ton of New England guys. How is that going to end up panning out for them? How are they going to end up? How is Patricia going to, A, make this thing work, or B, spin this to be like, no, I need more shots? It's a little bit different in the sense of Patricia, but yeah, I get where you're saying how you see the similarities, though. But like, Patricia's a smart guy. People don't really know, but he like majored in aeronautics or something like that at a school up in Rhode Island. He's a very, very smart guy. I think that he's going to figure it out, and I think that he's going on the right direction. But like, let's not fool ourselves. He's got a very short leash if things do kind of unfold in the wrong way.
I agree with that, and that's kind of my point. Because of that comparison, do you think he's going to get enough time to be able to develop as a coach, as a head coach? Because I know he's been a defensive coordinator, and when I saw him in New England, I wasn't thoroughly impressed with him as a defensive coordinator anyway. And to go from that to head coach is even more difficult. Is it that we're not giving he needs more time, or is it that just this may not be his thing?
I think that you kind of the time excuse, like I said before, like, the clock's ticking now, man. Time's running out. How much more time you need? This is year 4 or 3 with Patricia? 4, right?
Three.
Or 3?
Three.
Three. You know, and like
This
the
is three,
standard.
yeah.
Someone said, I think someone said in the chat, like, hey, 3 to 4 years for you to implement in your system. Like that's something that a lot of college coaches use too, where it's like, hey, I need 3 years to get my guys in and get my system going. All right, well, it's year 3. Like you need to start putting up games, you need to start putting up wins, and you need to start being an effective coach. Because at this point, like it's a square peg in a round hole. Something's not fitting. Maybe you're not supposed to be a head coach. Maybe you're not. Maybe the attitude that you had in New England isn't translating to guys out here. Because it's tough. A lot of times you see dudes who are defensive coordinators with Belichick, offensive coordinators, and they go out to another team, and they're trying to do that same mentality that they had in New England, in Denver, in Detroit, in Miami, and all these players are looking at them going, "You're not Bill Belichick. You do not have 6 Super Bowl rings to be yelling at me and dog cussing me, telling me that I suck or whatever. Like you can't run that system." So that part of it's really interesting to me, but as far as the time and everything like that goes, I think that it's time to put up or shut up, I guess is what I'm getting at with Patricia.
All right. So, J-Mo, we're going to go round 2. What's your question for the hook camp?
Well, I don't know if I had round 1.
You didn't get round 1? That's a mistake, man. That's a mistake.
No,
That's not me. I'm going to
it
get beat
doesn't
down, man.
I was gonna ask, this is what I wanted to ask you. I was gonna ask you, so the offensive line is a serious problem with this team. How do you think we can realistically, include the players that you think we might need to draft? How can we realistically fix this offensive line this year for the first time in Lions history, literally?
He's right
Good
on
one.
that, too.
Yeah.
Like, what do we need to do? If you was hired by the Lions and they like, we need you to fix this line, what would you do to fix this line?
Yeah, well, first things first, you got to see what they're doing to help each other out. And so offensive line wise, like if I go into a situation where I know that, my guards are not the strength of my offensive line, it's my tackles and my center, or maybe my tackles just they're not up to par, but hey, you got to go play with the dude you got. So running game wise, I'm going to create as many double teams as possible, which means that we're going to run a ton of inside zone and we're going to run a ton of what's called duo, which is power without a pull. So you just basically create double teams across the offensive line and you go and you try and create movement. That would be first things first for me is I'm going to try and create as many double teams as possible. First level first, take care of that first level, move them up, and we're going to, get off the backers when we get to that point. And so I guess schematics would be the big thing. The other is, the Vitae, I think, was a good addition. Probably a little hefty price tag, but I think that he was a good addition when you watch his tape. The dude run blocks really, really like it. He's a solid run blocker, and I think that he can do a really good job at tackle or guard. He can play both, which is very advantageous for you. But yeah, first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I got as many double teams as possible. As far as pass pro goes, I'm going to try and work in as much quick game, get that ball out, get that defensive line tired. We'll take our shots, on second and short when we get later into the game, when that D-line's tired after rep after rep after rep of going 100% rushing that quarterback. Well, we run so much quick game that these dudes are gassed. On top of that, you got to mix in your draws. You got to mix in your screens. Keep that defense guessing, right? You never want the defense to kind of have a jump on what you're doing. You always kind of want to be messing with them mentally. But as far as, player personnel goes, I like who they got with Vitae. I love a couple of guards in this year's draft, and we, Math Bomb yesterday brought up a couple more. I love the Shane Lemieux kid from Oregon. I watched a decent amount of him this year. It runs, he runs inside zone really well, man. I absolutely love the way that kid plays. But, as far as free agency stuff goes, time's done for that. You got to roll with the dude you got. You got Vitae, and I'm kind of blanking right now on who else they brought back. But
they got Joe Dahl
and Joe Dahl. And
Dahl worried me when I watched tape on him. Dahl worried me when I watched tape on him. He could be but again, you got to remember, like, the more these guys play, the more reps that they have, the better they're going to get, unless you've just maxed out that potential. And that's something that I'm kind of trying to wrap my brain around, as a young coach, is just that ability of noticing when a player, like, we're maxed out with what he can give to this football team. Maybe it's time to move on. But
what about Frank Ragnow?
Ragnow, I like. Was he right tackle?
He's a center.
No.
He was a center. Okay, I keep thinking of Graham Glasgow. He's the dude who went to Denver, right?
No, he started at left guard and then he was center.
Okay,
Last
yeah,
time
no, I
was
like
Sunday
Frank
at
Ragnow at center. I liked the center a lot because he's the kid who went to Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that
Arkansas.
he played really well. Like I said, the biggest problem for me was the guards, the guard position, and you have to help out your guards. And if they're, that's one of the things that's great is that like if your guards are maybe lacking, you can help, you can kind of cover that up because they're covered every way, right? To the right or left of them, they got the center. On the outsides, they got the tackles. You can help them out a lot as far as pass pro and run game goes. But I did like Frank Ragnow as a center. He was a star.
And then we have. Oh, go ahead, JMO.
Oh no, I was saying, what was your opinion on Joe Dahl?
Oh, that's Nomas. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dahl, I just felt like there were a lot of times where he was kind of getting smoked because his feet they just became too like he was in cement. That's kind of what I call it when you got dudes who are spiking and guys who are looping. Like you got to know if you're playing guard and you got a dude head up on you, or you got a 3-tech and you get into your pass set and that dude takes off. You got to know something's coming immediately. You're never going to get a free rep where you're like, oh, the 3-tech, he went outside the tackle and I was just chilling on that play. No, you got somebody who's coming in right now and trying to fill that void. So that was my biggest situation with Dahl was I felt like mentally he was lacking, and I didn't feel like footwork wise. I felt like he was a little too much stuck in cement, which makes sense. Those two tie together. If you don't know, you know what I mean? Like if somebody disappears and you're like, all right, well, I'm cool. Your feet aren't you're not going to be ready to roll to pick up a guy who's looping. So that was my opinion with Dahl. And again, limited amount of film that I watched, but from what I did see, that's where I felt like he was lacking.
And our left tackle is Taylor Decker. What are your thoughts on him?
I like Decker. I like that. Like I said, I feel like he might be a little bit maxed out as far as potential goes, but you got to understand, like, there's a lot of teams in the NFL who are searching for a tackle right now. And to have a guy like Decker, that doesn't mean that you're in a bad position. I think that he is a serviceable football player. Can he get better? Absolutely. Can you get better personnel-wise? Absolutely. But at the same time, I'm not looking to – he's not number one priority for me to get out on the offensive line. There's 2 or 3 other positions there that we can upgrade before we look at Taylor Decker and say he's the liability here.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Okay. So, Tim, do you have another question for Hook Camp?
Yeah. As far as for the cornerback situation, who do you think the Lions should really get as far as in the draft for, to replace Slay, or have they done that in free agency?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously they go and they make a move for Desmond Trufant. It's Desmond Trufant. I keep getting him mixed up with his brother. Marcus Trufant was his brother. He was a stud for Seattle. He was fun to watch. But Desmond Trufant, I think that it's you get into that situation where you go, is the guy serviceable? Yeah, but is he elite like Darius Slay? Probably not. Like I think Darius Slay was a pretty good cornerback. And the other thing, especially when we start talking defensively, is that everything has to tie in. If you leave any part of your defense out on an island, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's my biggest problem with Patricia when he's obviously with Detroit and when he was with New England, is that with New England, I felt like there were so many times where it was like, we're rushing 3, we're rushing 4, and we're running cover 1 behind it. And if you're running cover 1 behind it, that means your backers are just basically sitting there. Like there's no pressure being brought. They're passing off crossers underneath, but they're basically just kind of dropping into depth and leaving the middle of the field wide open for a check down or something underneath it. Everything has to tie in that sense. So by that, I mean, like, you got to bring pressure and help out your corners. Now, through the draft, there are a couple of guys that I definitely like. I do like the Gladney kid from, I believe he's the TCU guy. I like how he plays. I wouldn't spend a first rounder on him. Obviously, Okuda's solid. Would I spend the number 3 overall pick on him? I mean, we've all discussed ad nauseum that. No, I wouldn't spend the number 3 overall pick on Okuda. I think there's a plethora of other options there, including a trade. But through the draft, there's a kid out of Louisiana Tech that Luke G and I did a field review on, Amik Robertson, who is just this gritty kid from Louisiana Tech. And he like I say, he's just pure grit at corner. You know what I mean? He's locking dudes up, running with them vertically. He's getting hand on a football. He's coming up and making plays. And the other thing that I love about Amik Robertson is that, you could see from his junior year to his senior year a clear growth in his game. right? Whereas junior year, he's getting smoked by a tackle when they're running sweep, and he's getting pancaked. Whereas last year, he's coming up and he's making a play. He's being smart about how he's attacking those angles. So those are two guys that I really like. The Gladney kid, he's someone that I think is going to be a late round 1, probably early round 2. And maybe I'm a little off on that, but those are two guys that I definitely like. And then I think that I feel like there was a Clemson kid that I like too. But those are the two suspects off the top of my head that I did like at that corner spot. And then you never know what could happen in a trade either. You never know, man. Once draft day hits, there's a ton of things. And we saw Bob Quinn yesterday, who was basically like, no, once I get to that 3 spot, if I got no trade offers, I'm taking my guy, which I like. But again, you never know what happens on draft day.
Right.
That's
All right,
true.
thank you.
That's true. Nomus, you have another question for the hook cam?
Yes. To rotate on the DB, what is your opinion on Darryl Roberts, and what do you think he possibly could? Because I know he was kind of a so-and-so player, 1 good play, maybe 2 bad plays after that, like kind of guy. So just what's his chances, and if you could give me more of a breakdown, what can he bring good and bad to the team?
Yeah. So actually funny that Darryl, I saw that the Lions signed him the other day, and he's another dude who Darryl Roberts got drafted by New England a couple years ago. And then he got cut by New England, went to the Jets. But he wasn't like, and again, I haven't studied every rep that Darryl Roberts has done, so please forgive me if I'm a little off. But from what I saw, I did like a couple of things that he did with New York. I think that his plays probably tailed off a little bit, but when you're picking up a guy like that who has shown potential in New England and he showed potential in New York, you got to remember that, like, all right, well, New England, he got cut pretty early. New York, the Jets have been the Jets for what seems like forever. Right, they have not been a great football team offensively or defensively pretty much since Rex Ryan had them going in the right direction for a couple of years, and then he got axed. But I think Darryl Roberts definitely brings, from what I remember, and again, a limited film, but I did like his man-to-man skills, and I did like, which is exactly what Patricia wants, right? He loves to run cover 1 and just sit back on 3rd down and let the quarterback beat you. But I do like what he brings as far as man-to-man coverage. I think that he was more of an outside guy than a nickel. And they got who's the nickel corner for the Lions right now? Coleman. Thank you. And so I don't think that he would really rotate in at that nickel spot, but he's probably going to be, another outside guy. He's probably not going to be covering the number 1 receiver on the team every week, but he's definitely a dude who can rotate in and play some solid reps for you. Absolutely.
He could be.
You got to help your boys out.
Outside press with help coverage, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think that he can get, because if I'm not mistaken, he's got some decent size.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who, if you can teach him how to press, and you can teach him how to get guys, get their timing up. He's 6 feet tall, so he's got decent size for a corner. If you can teach him how to press and get into receivers' faces and, kind of throw off those timing routes. Don't let the quarterback just sit back there and pick you apart. Don't let receivers just get upfield and break you off on a comeback. Like, I think that he can definitely put in some valuable reps for Detroit. Absolutely.
J-Mo, it's your turn.
Okay,
that's all I got to
say. We talked about Stafford a little bit earlier, so I wanted to ask you. I'm a big fan of Stafford, but I want to know what you think. So, do you think he's the right quarterback for Matt Patricia, specifically on this Lions team?
I really do. I'm a big Stafford guy. So I actually, before this, I was watching that clip of Stafford when I think it was his rookie year, and he's playing the Browns, and he gets just smoked at the end of the game. He got smoked. I think he tore his AC joint or something, and he's like, "Give me back in there. I'm gonna throw a game-winning touchdown pass and win this football game for Detroit." Like, that's good enough for any coach, and I don't think that Patricia is necessarily wanting to move him. In essence, to answer your question, I do think that he is the right quarterback for Patricia, but it's not really Patricia that he needs to answer to. It's more Bevel. And Bevel has clearly done a good job of getting him the right weapons and putting him in the right position to really stretch the field and, hit those vertical balls that he's so good at getting into tight windows. And he can make every throw in the book. There's no problems. Stafford has never been the problem for Detroit. And the more I kind of get into this Detroit community, the more I see like kind of this weird split between I like Stafford and I don't like Stafford. And to me,
Yeah.
That's just mind-blowing. Like, Stafford has done everything that any coach has asked him to do. He's game in and game out been the guy to make the throw and the guy to put his team in a position to win. And that's what you want from a quarterback. Can you put your team in the right position? Can you limit turnovers? And can you make the throws necessary in that offense? And he's done all three of those things. So, yeah, I absolutely do think that Stafford is the guy for Patricia and for Bev.
With a lot of Lions fans, it's because Stafford's a quarterback, because when Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson were here, we respected how great they were, and we never really blamed them for losing. But Stafford's the quarterback, so he's the one that the Lions fans can take all their anger out on.
Yeah.
Even though he has way more talent than you could ever dream of, and if he was on 10 other franchises, he would be way more successful. And if you as a fan know that personally, then what is that saying about what's going on with the Lions? That's saying there's something else going on. And even when you can have Hall of Famers, some of the greatest players ever at their position, you still can't win football games. So, that's what it is with the split. And then the other people are just like, dude, Stafford is one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. And I'm glad we have him. He's a top 10 QB. I don't want another quarterback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I'm on that train too. And there's people on this as fans that say, "Oh, you know what? He's won nothing in all the time he's been here. He's not won a division title. He's not won a playoff game. He's not, all these things." But we put all that on one position and disregard the whole entire rest of the team.
Yeah.
There's people that don't look like that. They're not. They look at one thing. They can only look at one thing and tear into that rather than looking at the whole. It's almost a forest through the trees type thing.
They don't take into account the division we're in. We're in with the NFL's golden child.
Yep.
And he gets every call. The one they worship. Oh, he's the greatest I've ever seen in my entire life. The greatest scorer of football. We got that guy in the division. Lions fans just forget. And before that, we had Brett Favre in the division, which wasn't any better. Mm-hmm. So then you had Adrian Peterson, and the Bears can just go out and get Khalil Mack and win the division in 1 year.
Yeah.
It's just, and the Lions just sitting here in the water, kicking their feet. We just gonna keep doing what we always. Why do y'all expect anything to change?
Yeah.
But the fans I always scratch my head with are the ones that know Stafford deep down is not the problem, but they don't care and they want him just to be the guy to force it. To force us to win. It's what do you expect him to do?
Yeah.
He has more comebacks than any other quarterback at his age. What more do you want him to do?
I know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Dude, when I was watching film of this last year, I was watching, the game against the Chiefs, and then there was another game. I'm pretty sure it's the game against the Chiefs I'm thinking of, where he's in a 5-step drop. He steps up into the pocket. He moves, I think it was to his right or his left. I think he moved to his left, and he throws this ball on a dime right over in the bucket to this receiver in between a safety and corner, right on the sidelines.
Oh, when he threw the ball through 4 defenders to Kenny Galladay. One of the greatest passes I've ever seen. Yeah,
you're there's literally 4 quarterbacks in the NFL who can make that throw. This kid has never been the problem for Detroit. And with New England, I saw there were literally games in New England where it was you could tell Tom Brady was just going to go and win that game. He was going to throw the ball 60 times and he was going to will his team to win the football game. But at the end of the day, your defense has to put you in the, if your defense is getting shredded for 8 yards a carry and the opposing offense is putting up 45, 50 points, okay, well, I don't have a chance to win. With Stafford, I don't really feel like he's ever had the chance to be the guy where you're okay, there's 2 minutes left and we're down by 4. Stafford, go win this thing. If he's in that position, all the faith in the world that Matt Stafford's going to get it done. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why he has all the comebacks, because when he's in that position, that's what he's done.
Yeah.
And, when I think about him and not winning, I'm well, what does he do when the game is on the line? And to me, he's one of the most clutch quarterbacks in the league, and he has all the stats to prove it. So
Absolutely.
then I'm so then what's the issue then? Then I'm oh, yeah. Andrew, he's been sacked 50 more times than Andrew Luck since Luck entered the league, and he entered the league 2 years before Andrew Luck.
It's wild.
He gets sacked 40 times a season.
Yep.
A lot of punishment.
And then on top of that, you don't have any running backs.
Yeah.
Or any defense.
It's
How are you supposed to win football games?
Yeah, and it's by the time everything's all said and done, Stafford is going to be a top 3 stat-wise quarterback ever. I would love to see be not even a top 5 defense for Detroit, but a top 10 defense, something that's serviceable. Them squeaking in the playoffs and like, all right, now let's see in a 1-game situation, what can Stafford do? And just have the defense be serviceable and let Stafford go win that game. Because I 100% believe that Stafford's going to be able to do that. Like
I do too.
He can make all the throws. He makes the right decisions under pressure. He's exactly what you want for a quarterback. So the people that don't think that, or that think that Stafford is the problem, I don't know. I don't want to be mean, but they should dive into some film before we start throwing around those accusations.
Absolutely. Right. Totally agree with you. We have somebody joining us now. It's OMG. It's Lions Talk, and this is Michael. And Michael, welcome to the show. Or not.
I'm almost there.
Are you here?
That's funny, man.
Okay, let's go on. Move on now. Hey, Tim, what do you think about Stafford?
Okay, well, the only thing that I don't like is that the team has not been able to build a winning team around him.
Okay, somebody don't have their headphones in because I'm hearing an echo. Just letting everybody know.
I mean, I think that's why.
I think it's you, Tim.
My headphones are in.
Okay.
Well, it sounds good now.
Sounds better.
Right,
okay.
It sounds better now.
All right.
But
can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you now. It's Michael from OMG.
Okay. Hey,
how are you doing tonight?
Good. Sorry about that. I have my headphones plugged in halfway.
So now we know who did it. Dun, dun,
right,
dun.
it was me.
No, I'm just kidding. All right. Do you got a question for the hook cam?
Or were you talking to me?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
Michael.
okay. Man. I got a lot of questions. Okay. How high do you put a need for a running back?
Yeah, so I kind of hit on this before you were here, and like it's important. So like I want to reiterate it. Like the running back position to me is the cherry on top of an offense, and to me it's going to be below a serviceable quarterback, a good offensive line, receivers who can create separation and catch the football. That's then what I'm going to look for, the running back who's like a legit home run hitter. So it's 3 or 4 down for me. It's definitely not going into like this draft with the Lions. It's definitely not the top need in my opinion. But at the same time, you can always improve at that position. You can always, like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire guy from LSU, and I know that he's kind of been linked to Detroit more and more that like we get closer to this draft. I think that he would do great out here. Like a dude who can get out of the backfield, catch the football. And again, Luke's hit on it a couple of times. His blocking absolutely needs improvement, but that's something that I think a lot of backs aren't great at in college and they get a lot better at in the NFL. Because college-wise, and again, I don't mean to dive too much into the schematics, but you can put a team in a really difficult position in college if you can get your back out of the backfield, because now you have to account for that defensively. Whereas in the NFL, they're like, dude, I don't even – in the NFL, they don't care because everybody's so fast. They're going to rally to the flat before that guy can really do some damage. In college is a little bit different, especially with a guy who's that athletic like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But like going back to your question, it is a priority, sure, but it's not the top priority.
So the second part of my question: would you, say the Lions make a trade early on that we all think they will? Would you grab one with your extra second round pick?
It's interesting because. To a short answer for your question, yes, but it depends. So if running backs are going off the board and you're like, damn, like there goes Jonathan Franklin, there goes J.K. Dobbins, you're like, all right, well, now we kind of have to make a move because that's kind of the trend right now. If they're early in the second and they feel like let's say they make a trade back and they can pick up, let's say they make the trade with the Chargers and they get the 6th overall, right? And then maybe they squeak out the Chargers second rounder as well, which would be an absurd trade for them to get. But I think it's possible. If they can address like offensive line with their first pick in the second, and then you're like, okay, maybe we can spend that pick on a back and you can grab a guy like J.K. Dobbins, then go do it because that dude can make a difference.
Right.
So I was typing. I'm sorry, guys.
Good.
Yeah, I'm always
Yeah, I
honest
was
about
like,
everything. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
Jim.
It's JMO. I'm going to you.
All right, so we've talked and discussed about a lot of topics, but I do want to switch the topic to a little bit of what's going on with your team right now.
Oh,
And
Okay.
I just wanna know, because first of all, how do you feel about us getting all these players from your team, and what do you think that this biggest need for the Patriots right now?
So first things with that, as far as Lions picking up Pat's players, getting into coaching, you guys always notice I got a full pages worth of essays to say before I can get to the answer. So I'm sorry about that, but I got so much stuff to say. I like it. I like the fact that Villanova goes and signs a fat deal in Miami. I like the fact that Shelton gets paid in Detroit. I like the fact that Jamie Collins gets a second chance at a bigger contract, because it's like those dudes put in great work for New England, and that's where they have a chance to put your nose to the grindstone, learn the X's and O's, learn the schematics, learn the technique, and then get out there and play good football, even if it's not in New England. And a lot of those personnel, like I said, I love Danny Shelton coming out of college. I loved him when he was in New England. Same thing with Jamie Collins, and same thing with Ron Harmon. All those guys are going to have a bigger role. They're going to have a bigger spotlight, and I'm excited to see what those guys can do. Just on the pure sense of I like that individual player, whether he's on my team or not. Go play, man. Go prove that you deserve that money. So it excites me to see guys like that get their paycheck, sign that contract, and go get a chance. As far as what New England needs, I feel like the mainstream media is really trying to push Pats are going to pick a quarterback with their 23rd, or they're going to move up and try and take a Herbert. I just don't see that. I do not see Belichick thinking that the quarterback position needs to be addressed immediately. I think that he looks defensively first, and he's going to try and build around a linebacking core and a defensive line, because I think that they have a top 3 secondary in the NFL. But as far as what they're going to do with that 23rd, I see him going with an edge guy or a linebacker, depending on who's available. A Kenneth Murray could very likely fall to New England. A guy like who am I thinking of? The kid from LSU, Clavon Chason, could fall to New England. He's a little bit smaller than what they like to run with their edge guys. But the kid from Boise State, Curtis Weaver, I think his name, he's a stud, and he could easily be there. And he kind of fits into what they want to do as far as a stand-up defensive end who is very versatile, can move sideline to sideline pretty well. I think that they go defense first and kind of change things up. But I think they pick up a quarterback. I just think it's in around 3 or 4.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I have a question. Who do you think the Lions are going to go with at 3, and how likely is it that they're going to stay at 3?
So I think how likely it is depends on what trade talks are going on right now. I think that the closer we get to draft day, the less likely it is that they're going to make a trade unless something crazy happens, and I think that, Mathbaum hit on it yesterday. If Chase Young for some reason falls to the 3, then you're going to have probably 20 or 30 trade offers being right at your front door, people hammering on your front door, trying to get in and trying to pick that spot up because they want a guy like Chase Young. But I think that, if they decide to stay at the 3, I'm a big Isaiah Simmons fan. And I think that if they pick Isaiah Simmons, not only is it a great move just because him individually, I think, is a generational talent, but I also think that at Clemson, they ran a ton of fire zones. And what a fire zone means for people who don't know is when you're actively bringing pressure, you're going to bring 4 to 6 players, and then you're going to run a cover 3 behind it. You're going to run a cover 2 or cover 4 behind it. Most of the time it's cover 3. So I think that if you put a guy like Isaiah Simmons, and Patricia's like, wow, I really liked how he was able to make plays in that position and in that role, we got to kind of mold what we're doing to that. I think it's a really good sign as far as they're going to start bringing more pressure on 3rd down, which would make me very happy as a Lions fan. I'm talking like I'm one of you guys now. I love
me
it.
too.
Well, you are.
I mean, a lot of Lions fans would be happy with Isaiah Simmons. So
I'm very happy with Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, I've heard from a number of people that he's, without shedding too much light, but I've talked to some people who train with him and have worked with him a little bit pre-draft, and I'm not kidding you when I'm telling you that, like, from what I've heard, he is a legitimate generational talent as far as athletic ability. He's very, very good. He's very good at tackle football. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but he's pretty damn good.
Good at tackle football. All right, Nomus, you got a question for the hook cam?
Yes. Depending on the draft situation, like you're saying, if we do take Simmons in the first round, what would be, if you're the GM of the Lions and you had to make the move, what would be your next pick? And if it's on the offensive line, should you get?
Yeah, so this is a situation that I've actually thought of a decent amount. If you can snag Simmons, have your party, pop that champagne, and then let's get ready to pick an offensive lineman. I love the kid from Michigan, Cesar Ruiz. I think that he's a stud. He's a grinder, and he's somebody that you can plug in, and he can play week one, and he can play at that guard spot, and he can really solidify that offensive line. Cesar Ruiz, absolute stud. Aside from that, he's really one of the few guys that I look at and go, yeah, he's worth a second round pick. After that, you start looking into rounds 3 and 4. You start looking at the guys like Shane Lemieux, maybe a Lloyd Cushenberry from LSU who can move around. Yeah, he played center in college, but just kind of general information. If you play center in college, you're going to end up moving and playing a guard in the league, or you're going to play a tackle in the league if you have the height. You have to have the versatility to play almost all 5 positions unless you're a 6'8" tackle. But like I said, the suspects that I look at, Cesar Ruiz, if you're picking early in the second, if he's there, go take him. After that, you start looking to 3 and 4 and start looking for some steals. There's always linemen who are diamonds in the rough. And I think about New England. I think about a guy like Shaq Mason and Joe Tooney, the 2 guards for New England right now. Also, really quickly, do not be surprised if the Lions make a move for Joe Tooney, because he has not signed a contract extension with New England after being tagged. And I've heard that they are nowhere near a contract extension with Joe Tooney. So if
that would make me quite happy.
If the Lions could swing and Isaiah Simmons, and they're like, hey,
Kenny Wiggins.
Yeah,
right.
If they're like, we can swing our second rounder for Joe Tooney and make, Belichick and those guys happy. Oh my God, like that would be absolutely insane for Detroit, and he would instantly make them a much better football team. So, but anyway, those are the suspects that I look at for Detroit.
The one real big head scratcher for me in free agency is why they didn't go harder after Conklin. I know it's a lot of money, but he's from Michigan. He's a right tackle, went to Michigan State. It just made a lot of sense for me, and I don't know why. I'm not saying I don't like Vita. I'm just saying that I don't know if that was the best move they could make. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's like you start looking at, what's available. And the worst position that a GM could be in is paying a high pay scale for a mediocre talent. And maybe that was a situation that they looked at, but at the same time, then they go and sign Vitae. And it's like, dude, were you banking on Conklin, bumping down what he was, asking for? And were you banking on that and banking on signing him? And then he turns around and signs with somebody else. Because who did he sign with, the Browns or something like that?
Yeah, the Browns.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, maybe they were just like, oh, he's going to want to take a hometown discount. He was like, no, I'm not. I still want to make my money.
Right.
Which could have happened. Nobody knows. But the one thing that I do like about it, and in a weird way, is the fact that they don't go and sign Conklin, but then at least they made a move. Like if they didn't make any moves and they were like, oh, we were banking on Conklin and that's it, then you'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, who's running this operation? But they didn't. They go on the send Vitae. Was it expensive? Yeah, it was. But if it brings in, like I said, a serviceable player, and maybe the contract's got guaranteed incentivized money, then okay, maybe it was a good signing. But I agree with you. I think that Conklin would have been a good decision. And I'm not saying that they didn't try to, but I'm saying that maybe they were banking on him being like, oh, I'll take a hometown discount. He was like, no, not a chance.
Right. Exactly. Okay, I'm going to go to Michael from OMG. It's Lions Talk. And what's your question?
I'm kind of on the other side of most people, and I don't think that the Lions actually need to draft a cornerback. I think with Amani Warrior, Mike Jackson, Mike Ford, they're all younger guys. So we need to. The question I'm going to ask is, do you think it's up to the coaches to develop that talent versus getting another guy and wasting a draft pick?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you bring up where, as a GM, a big part of what you're doing is trusting your coaching staff. Do I trust my coaching staff to make this player a legitimate starter? If you don't, then you're probably going to go make a move for somebody who's already pretty damn good. So in that sense, you kind of go back to that square of, Patricia's timeline and where does he have these players ready to go? Is he ready to go? Is he ready to be a legit number 2 corner? Is Trufant and Aquara going to be 2 good enough corners? But again, to me, it all ties into your scheme. If you want to sit back and run cover 1 and rush 3 or rush 4, it doesn't matter who you have. There was really only a couple corners who could ever lock dudes down for 8 seconds, and it was Darrelle Revis and it was Deion Sanders. Besides that, find me somebody who could play that well, because there hasn't been anybody else like that. You've got to bring more pressure. You have to help your guys out. It's that simple. And I've been in a situation as a coach where, cover 1 has just torched you, and you're like, what are we doing? Why are we still? It's frustrating. I don't want to get too much into it, but like I say, you got to be able to have it tie into your scheme. But again, it kind of goes into what you're saying. Where's that trust? Do we trust Patricia? Do we trust the cornerbacks coach? Do we trust those guys to get these guys ready to go, or do we need to go out and get more talent? There's definitely some guys who they can sneak out and get later in the draft too, who I think could be serviceable as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say just to say it. This guy's talking about Kenny Wiggins. I have no idea why they signed him. But I really don't. I don't understand. J-Mo, what do you think about Kenny Wiggins?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Man, look, I'm not gonna do it today, but he's completing utter trash, and they wasted a spot. Like I said, they should have gave somebody else the opportunity they about to give him. Like, should have let somebody else shine. It was completely pointless. I just don't like it at all. Like, he's not a good offensive lineman. He's just not. I've seen him let Stafford get sacked over and over again, and I just don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
What he signed for? I'm trying to look up what he signed for right now.
Yeah, I don't even know the contract.
It's a cheap tender type deal, probably. Veteran minimum.
Hopefully, it's veteran minimum.
Yeah, no, I just don't understand why they would sign him. Like, it just makes no sense, especially if he's not going to make the team. You better off letting some young guy compete with the rest of the guys to get some experience, and maybe he could rise up than giving him another opportunity. But the Lions love to do that.
You're right. They
love to hold on to players.
They love that. Bo Benshaw, they were talking about. General View was talking about, and I liked him. Is he ready? I don't know if he's ready.
I'm not sure. The funny story about him, last year I paid us to go in the top 3 rounds to get him, and I was like severely disappointed. Then they turn around and like pick this guy up undrafted. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? I could have sworn he should have been drafted.
I believe that Bo Benshaw will get it together. I actually do. So he takes Joe Dahl's spot, but I wanted to ask the Hook Cam because I asked everyone this. What do you think about T.J. Hawkinson as a player and a prospect? And what do you think he's going to do for the Lions this year?
I like Hawkinson a lot. Excuse me. I like Hawkinson a lot. I think that, the biggest thing is we saw this transformation at the tight end position from a true like blocking tight end from, like 90s, early 2000s, where it was like, no, they're going to put their hand in the dirt. They're going to block down on power. They're going to reach on our outside zones. And you saw that like transition into like, oh, they can catch the rock too. Like they can go up and make plays. So I think when you draft a guy like Hawkinson from Iowa who's got the experience run blocking, he can go out and make plays. He can contribute to this offense and make it better. Then I think it's a good signing a good draft pick for them. Where he goes from here, I think that first and foremost, like he missed a couple of games from injury, got to make sure he's healthy. And you really have to figure out where is he going to fit into this offense in that passing game, because I don't think that there's any doubt that he can run block, and that's very, very crucial to that running game. Having tight ends who are liabilities sucks, because I've been in that position where 5 guys on the offensive line are blocking it right, and the tight end's getting smoked, and now we've got a gain of 2. Nothing worse in football than 2nd and 8. absolutely will make me put my head through a wall if I end up in 2nd and 8 time and time again. It's very frustrating. So I think that he can contribute. As far as where is he going to fit in, I think that we heard, Mathbomb say it a lot yesterday, where it's like, dude, create space, have him run those routes where, like, I just remember Gronk, and again, he's not like Gronk, and I don't want to make that comparison because that's not fair to either sides, because Hawkinson's been in the league for a cup of coffee. He needs to be in here for a little bit more. But, have that ability to box guys out. At the top of your route, give him a little forearm shiver, create that separation, and catch the ball and give me some yardage. So I think that I don't see him really like stretching the field. Like, he's not going to go and outrun a safety. But I think if you match him up with a backer and he's running a speed out, yeah, he's going to win that matchup. If he's matched up with a safety and he can kind of bully him a little bit on a slant, yeah, he's going to win that matchup. So I think that that's where you kind of got to get guys going and then build that route tree off of that. Early on in Gronk's career, you saw him running a ton of slants, you saw him running a ton of outs, and you really didn't see the vertical game until you got in, 4, 5, 6 years into his career. And, he's able to now you can kind of work double moves. Now we can run a curl and go. Now we can run an out and go. Like, you can build on his route tree and on his repertoire and move up from there. So I think you see in like year 2 in that process, let's still work on, those intermediate throws, that 10 to 15 yards, 10 to 20 yards, running those speed outs, running those curls, and getting them going over the middle and out in between the numbers and the hash.
There's a lot of I think offensively the Lions are going to be okay as long as they can get that offensive line solidified. I wanted to ask you a question about the defensive line. I know we have Trey Flowers and that's about it. No, I'm kidding. Danny Shelton. I'm kidding. The guy from Chicago. What do you think about Detroit's defensive line as it's currently constructed?
Yeah, like I said, I do think that it needs some work. I love Trey Flowers, and he was a dude, that the New England drafted, and like he was like a 4th-round pick, and I was like, who is this cat? And then 2 years in, he's the starting like 4i for New England, and you're like, oh my god, he like in the Super Bowl against Andrew Whitworth, who is a legendary tackle. He's like stiff arming him into the backfield, and they're running wide zone, and the tackle's 4 yards into the backfield, and Todd Gurley has nowhere to go. So I think that he's an excellent football player, and that can't be understated. Now you can't just have one great defensive lineman and be like, defensive line taken care of, man, let's move on. No, you have to have guys who complement each other. That's why I love the ability of a Danny Shelton, because Danny Shelton's going to eat up a ton of blocks, right? Danny Shelton's not going to go and put up 5, 6+ sacks in a season, but he is going to jump on grenades for his guys. He's going to eat up double teams. He's going to open up spaces for backers and for other defensive linemen. Outside of Trey Flowers and Danny Shelton, I think that they probably need 1 or 2 more guys who they can depend on to really rush the quarterback and to put some heat on opposing Qs. That's probably the biggest thing for me, is finding some serviceable guys who can rotate in. It's tough to play defensive line and play for 4 quarters, man. Like, it is 100%. Like, you're giving 100% effort on every single snap, and if you don't give 100% effort on every single snap, you ain't playing. You're not going to play. So having the rotation and having the depth is the biggest thing, in my opinion. And I don't know if Detroit has that depth to have a truly like violent defensive line. Am I answering that question? That makes sense?
Well, I mean, obviously you don't know everything about our team, but we did have a great in the 4th round, just like Trey Flowers, a great defensive lineman in Deshaun Hand who can play. He can play 3 defensive positions on the defensive line, and he's a great pass rusher. Okay. I mean, he was injuring Aaron Rodgers and things of that nature, but man, I gotta keep bringing it up, man. My boy got Aaron, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
but, he was injured all last year, so like he had a great rookie season. Like, his grades were closer to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald just had more sacks, but then he got injured this last year, so now we really don't know what he's gonna provide. I mean, I believe in him. But besides that, we don't really have any defensive ends. That's why Chase Young falls. You kind of have to take him just because we do need another defensive end. And if it can be that guy,
right,
then it might be a good idea. Yeah. So we have to use him right, though.
And kid out of Clemson, too. Right. Austin Bryant. Can't forget about him either.
Yeah.
But Nomus, I think you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. But the thing is, Deshaun Hand, naturally, I know he can play literally all 3 spots, but he's a natural, like, 3-4 DN, like, which means he's more of a hybrid DT. So to me, I think what the issue was when he was hurt last year we brung in, for example, like Mike Daniels, and even though we had that kid that was undrafted, like Kevin Strong, like Mike Daniels was never healthy. And to me, that spot always felt kind of open where Deshaun Hand played on. And I feel like that's kind of the position that the Lions do need to get a guy who can actually also rotate with him and do kind of what Hand does. That can play multiple sets, not just be like a strictly defensive end, but who can actually be versatile across the D line and play in rotation. I think that's the makeup what they're doing. It might be somewhat reason why they went after Nicholas Williams for cheap.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
He was a good pickup.
Did you do any? Did you know anything about Austin Bryant from Clemson?
Who asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know a ton about Austin Bryant from Clemson. I do know that Clemson puts out very, very good defensive linemen. So if he's getting picked and he's from Clemson, I probably am gonna like how he looks. But I'm gonna be straight up. I don't know a ton about Austin Bryant. No.
That's fine. I just wanted to ask just to see, you know. So Tim, I'm gonna go to you. I haven't heard from you in a while. You still alive?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Now, do you think that we have our receiving core is good enough to get it done, or do you think we need some more speed on that receiving core?
Yeah,
here we go.
Yeah, I think that the receiving core, you look at, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, and Danny Amendola are the first three that pop out. And all three of those guys, I think, are good enough players to get the job done. I mean, Kenny Golladay kind of, I don't want to say he came out of nowhere because like people knew about him, but at the same time, I think that he's thriving in that offense. And Danny Amendola made a career out of being a guy who you're like, well, he's not crazy fast and he's not crazy quick, but he catches every football that's thrown his way. Like he's a dude that they have the trust in to go and make the big time catch on third down, and that's definitely that adds a lot of value to him as a player. Personally, I do think that the receiving core is good enough to get the job done. I wouldn't hurt to add a couple of dudes who, maybe could pop off in camp and make that football team. No, not at all. Especially in a draft this year where it's super deep. I mean, there's a ton of receivers this year who could go and make a statement. So, like I say, it's kind of like the running back thing where it's like, is it a high priority? No, it's not a high priority, but is it a priority? Kind of. I would put it below running back for sure as a position to go out and get for Detroit.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. We're going to go back to Nomus for a question for Hook Camp.
Yes. So my thing is with Daryl Bevel's system, how well do you think that they're going to be able to get the offensive line to play together? Because, I mean, okay, we don't know for sure how our guards are going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and I know it's a lot of questions on Big V playing right tackle because people are really iffy on his pass blocking. And if you were the coach or in this situation, would you even use him at tackle or would you throw him at left guard?
I mean, like I said, a lot of it depends on who they pick up in the draft. If they can steal a Shane Lemieux and have him compete in camp, then I definitely think Vaitai could play right tackle. I've watched a decent amount of Vaitai film, and I like the way he pass protects. I know that kind of the popular thing for a lot of media is to be like, oh, he's lacking in that pass blocking. But I from what I've seen, like if you guys watched, the Eagles played the Vikings in the NFC Championship game 2 or 3 years ago, whenever the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and he was locking down Everson Griffin. And Everson Griffin is no slouch. Like there is potential there as far as pass blocking.
Oh,
it's just,
trust me, Lions fans know about Everson Griffin.
Yeah, exactly.
We know.
But no,
it was like 10 sacks in one game. I mean, it wasn't just him, but oh my God.
Yeah.
It was mainly him, though.
It was mainly him.
No, like there's potential with Vaitai to play and pass protect well as a right tackle. I think that, let me put it this way. I think that when they signed him, they were like, he is going to compete for a right tackle position. If he gets beat out by somebody, or if they draft somebody who is serviceable at that tackle spot, then you can bump him into guard and still have him be a good football player for you. So priority-wise with Vaitai, I think that they signed him with the intention of him playing right tackle.
Okay.
That's cool. All right, going to OMG, Michael.
Do you think we made the right hires for defensive coaches? Because we had a big turnover. We fired everybody. And we brought in Bo Davis, Tyrone McKenzie, I believe Arderlin, the Eagles defensive back coach. Do you think those were good hires?
Yeah, I like Corey Unlin a lot, and that might be a little bit of a personal bias. The guys that I worked with in college, the guys that I coach with in college know him personally, and they're pretty tight. So I'm going to be a little bit biased with that. I'll be straight up when I say that. But at the same time, like you look at his track record, and like in Philadelphia, they had a very good defense when they went and played. Now that defense was predicated on having a great front four and a great pass rush. But I think that the guys that they brought into this system are going to help it absolutely. And I think that at this point, when you look at the schematics of how Patricia was running things and how there was a lack of blitzing, as long as he brings guys in who he trusts and he's going to listen to, then there's going to be guys who see what I see. I'm not the greatest football coach ever. I'm by no means. I'm a very young kid who has spent a lot of time in the film room, and I know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, like there's a reason why those guys got brought in. So yeah, I think that Unlin specifically, I don't know a ton about the other guys. I'll be honest about that, but I do think that they are going to help put this team in the right direction defensively. Absolutely.
Okay. We got a question in there. It says we talked about Joshua Garnett. So what do you think about him?
Joshua Garnett. I got to look this dude up. I'm not going to lie. I feel unprepared.
Okay.
Who is it?
That's I think isn't he the guy from San Francisco that we got?
From San Francisco.
He's a guard, I think.
Okay.
He's our new starting right guard.
He was drafted pretty high, but he's injured all the time.
Yeah, he was a first round pick, I think.
He might have came in on crutches. I'm just kidding.
Yikes.
At least for us, he did.
I mean, if he's a Stanford dude, I can tell you that they know how to run power. Like they know how to run their inside zone and their power. They know how to get gritty. So he's got that background. That's definitely something to be positive about. But I mean, again, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know a ton about him. If he's a first rounder, though, he's drafted for a reason. Like you got to remember, if guys are getting drafted in the first round, like that's what Belichick has done such a good job of, is taking these guys who are first round busts or haven't lived up to that potential, and it's like, maybe they weren't in the right position. Maybe they weren't getting coached the right way. Maybe there's some untapped potential there that you can get out of them. And again, if it's a cheap deal, if it's a bargain deal, why not bring in a guy who was drafted in the first round? You never know what he could end up being. I mean, I might not know about him right now, but by week 5, he could be the starting left guard, starting right guard for the Lions. And I could be like, dude, this guy was a steal for him,
Yeah, could be.
Sure.
All right, JMO.
Yeah, everybody, make sure you guys like that video. I see Ramon, a new age in the building, Go Lions in the building, Blue and Silver Phantom in the building, and Chris Cashwell. But I wanted to ask you, if Matt Patricia gets all of his guys, do you think he will be able to run this defense at an elite level, at the level that it needs to be ran in order for us to, have success, make the playoffs, win the division? Do you believe in him if he gets these players? Yeah, I mean, he's bringing in all of these players. He's bringing in all of his guys, and we're wondering what's going to go on. But based on what you know from him being from the Patriots, do you think if he gets all his guys, it will work? Because, I mean, he had a lot of guys in New England, and the Eagles still scored 40 points.
Oh, dude.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I know Malcolm Butler wasn't playing, but that's not an excuse.
No, not at all.
You can't get. I mean, that was Nick Foles. That wasn't Joe Montana. That was Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he went in there and lit y'all up.
Oh yeah.
Lit y'all up.
Very frustrating.
If he gets all his guys, do you think he'll be able to get the job?
Patricia's defenses I've never looked at and been like, wow, that's an elite defense. Like what they're going to be is they're going to be sneaky good. And by sneaky good, I mean, you're going to watch the games and the Lions are going to win. And you're going to be like, I feel like we gave up a ton of yards and a ton of points tonight. And you're like, yeah, they did. But in the red zone, they were really good. And they gave up field goals instead of touchdowns. And Patricia's defenses, especially in New England, were never like staggering like New England was last year. But the reason for that is because he doesn't pressure. And like I've been saying, I feel like a broken record saying it. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but you have to help your guys out. You can't just sit back and cover 1 and cover 3 and expect to win a football game, which is exactly what happened with the Eagles. Patricia's game plan going into that was, I'm going to sit and cover 1. Nick Foles is going to make 1 or 2 mistakes, and Brady's going to win. Brady's going to go down, get some points off of those, and we're going to win this football game. That's not what happened. Nick Foles was dialed in for that game. So To answer your question, I think that they'll be better. I think that they'll be serviceable. Will they be elite? No. And I hate to be blunt about it, but no, because I don't think I've ever seen them at Patricia defense that have been like, wow, this offense they're not getting what they want. They're not getting the positions, the matchups that they like. And Patricia's a very numbers based guy, especially when you look at what his history is. As far as even back to his education, like I said earlier, the dude like majored in aeronautics or aerospace dynamics or something like that, from like a Polytech Institute. Like the dude's a smart guy. He plays the numbers though defensively. If a team runs power and they run their power to hit the B gap, then he's going to stack guys in the B gap. He's going to stack one or two backers in the B gap, and he's going to force them to bounce it. He's going to force them to cut it back into, guys who are filling or who are pressing that edge. But there are a lot of times in New England where, he's playing the numbers, but now they're bouncing their power to the C gap. Now they're bouncing it outside, and like, okay, now we stack guys in the B gap, but now they're bouncing to another spot. So he plays the numbers in that sense, and I think that puts him in a position to get beat. And so to answer your question, will they be elite? No, I don't think so. But will they be serviceable if he has the right guys and he's doing the right thing? And maybe a couple of these coaches that he brings in, maybe they are in his ear. Maybe they are saying, "Hey, coach, let's bring some heat on third down. Let's run some fire zones. Let's mix things up on first and second instead of running the same thing." Then I think that they can get into that territory of being like, damn, like we're making progress defensively. But like I said, do I think they'll be elite?
I don't like what you're saying. It doesn't give me.
I know. I'm sorry, but I want to be honest.
He has to listen to his coaches if he has to listen to his coaches in order to pressure, I'm very concerned. I'm gonna try to be optimistic because we got Matthew Stafford, but. Oh boy!
Yeah, but so the one thing I will say is that like when you're on a staff, like having a I don't want to say a toxic staff, but when you have a staff where you have a bunch of foot soldiers, and when you go into your meeting rooms on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you're developing that game plan. If it's if the defensive coordinator, the OC is like, it's my decision, I run the show, you guys coach it up. Then there's going to be issues, because as much as it's weird to say, one guy is not going to catch everything in a football game. That's just not how it works. As the O-line guy, I was watching defensive line, and I could never get caught watching the ball, because if I got caught watching the football and seeing stuff in the backfield, I wasn't going to be able to see what was happening on the offensive line. I wasn't going to be able to see if they were if they were following a guard, if they're keying guards linebacker wise. So that staff has to work together. You have to be, and I think Patricia's probably like that, because I doubt that Belichick was like that in his system. Like you could hear, audio from Belichick and, McDaniels, Belichick and Patricia being like, all right, let's what do you think about this? You got to bounce ideas off each other. You have to be open. If your ego dominates how you think and how you game plan, you're going to get smoked. I don't think Patricia's that way. I think that maybe he's a little bit more firm with players, which, I don't want to dive into that, but, or if you guys want to, sure. But maybe he's a little bit more firm with players, but I'm sure that coaching wise, he's open, and he's open to hearing what other people have to say.
I'm going to ask that question.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you this. We hear a lot from Glover Quinn. We're hearing from Darius Slay, Snacks Harrison, all these people that left, and not necessarily all trashing Patricia, but it seems like there's a general consensus that they don't want to be here. Is that because of Patricia's kind of abrasive attitude, or is that just a system that they are not used to? What is it that's making that happen? Do you have insight into that?
Yeah, so obviously I'm not in the building, so I don't know 100%. An obvious statement, but I have to preface it with that. Mm-hmm. It's really easy for me at the college level, when I was coaching there, it was really easy for me to say something that was going to piss a player off. We all love football. I'm sure that we've all played at some point. And with players, even at the high school and Pop Warner and up the college level, there's egos that are involved. And there's kids who think that they're way better than they actually are. So when you come in on Sunday and you're like, your down block on power sucks, and there's a lot more expletives with that. But when you come in on Sunday and you light some kid up for that, he's going to take that to heart. And you would hope that at the professional level that they have the ability to be like, no, it's just a coaching point. Like I gotta get over it and I gotta get better. But in the sense of how that translates to the league and with guys like Slay and Quinn and Snacks Harrison, let's be honest, Snacks Harrison came in unprepared and not ready to go and play a full football season. And I don't think that anybody would argue that, right? I mean, like he came in out of shape, not ready to go. With Slay, you have a guy who has been there, who's built the rapport. You don't know what he was like in the locker room. Maybe he was thinking that he was the dude and that it should be, end all be all with Darius Slay. And again, I don't know because I wasn't there, but maybe that was his take on things. And when Patricia was trying to change things up, Slay was like, that's not how I play my game. And Patricia was like, well, that's what we're running now. So one of the things have to change, and I'm the guy who makes the decisions. And that's kind of what it boils down to. So I think that it was probably a clash of egos. I would be worried if, like, next year, Deron Harmon's like, I need to get out of here, and he gets traded, and you're like, whoa, that was a dude that Patricia brought in to be, quote unquote, one of his guys, and now he's saying that. That's when I would be worried. But at that point, it's guys who had been there before him. Yeah, they had been serviceable for the Lions before that. Slay was a stud. Obviously still is. He's pretty good. But, if he doesn't fit sometimes, and Patricia's whole thing is I got to get my guys in. Well, at the end of the day, GM's going to listen to the coach before he listens to the player. That's just how it is. So I think that it's a combination of ego, Patricia wanting to run his system and having the right guys around, that playing a big factor. And trust me, guys, I know everybody's tired of hearing that. But you're going to hear it until Patricia gets canned or he does well. You know what I mean? Like, that's just it's going to
I get that. Okay, we're going to go one more question around the panel, and then we're going to go to questions in the chat. I'm seeing a ton of questions in the chat. We're going to take your questions at the end. So if you could hold those to the end and then give them to us then, so I don't have to go searching around for questions, I would appreciate that. All right, we're going to go to Nomas first.
Okay, so again, let me ask you a question about this. Say if the Lions are, because I believe now I'm hearing that it is 7 games this year. So what is the winning expectation you would like to think is for him and Bob Quinn to survive on? Because if it's one thing to say injuries are involved and then they make the playoffs by rallying at the last minute, going to at the 7th seed and lose the game. I mean, should he be fired for something like that, or do you think he should have to do more? And I know as Lions fans are going to say he should have to do more, but I mean, if you're just trying to be down the middle about it.
Yeah, so from a neutral standpoint, thinking about this, the first thing for success, I think, for a head coach at Patricia's position is being able to win in the division. If they can, like, the Lions should beat the Vikings this year, both games. The Lions should probably beat the Bears both games this year. They should probably split with the Packers if you're being super optimistic about it in terms of in division. But, like, when you look at the talent that they have, and this is the time where the Lions kind of start to be that unexpected team to make a pretty good push at things. If they can't, like, to me, it all starts in division. If they can be, being in a position to beat the Packers, if they can beat the Vikings, if they can beat the Bears, if they can do well in division, then that's going to be very optimistic for things to come. However, when it comes in terms of, like, making the playoffs, it's time to make the playoffs and at least win a game in my eyes. If Patricia can make this, and again, making the playoffs, that whole standard has been bumped way down now. And I know that only one more team's in, but just allowing one more team, you bump the standard down now. You can be 7-9 and make the playoffs this year. So I think that you have to make the playoffs and you got to win on Wild Card Sunday for this to look at this with Patricia and be like, okay, we've got things going in the right direction. But it starts with winning games in division. If you can't win games in division, you ain't going to make the playoffs. So that's the way I look at it. First things first, win your division games. You should beat the Vikings both games. You should beat the Bears both games, unless they just come out and they surprise everybody. But, the big games are going to be the Packers. But getting into the playoffs and winning a game on Wild Card Sunday, that's going to be the big thing for me.
Okay, that was a good question too. Tim, your question for the Hook Camp.
Okay, well, if we do get rid of Patricia after the season, and his style of play is a lot different than a lot of other coaches and stuff, how many years is that going to set us back? Needing to rebuild again, because that's been one of the Lions' issues for so many years. We go 3 years and we fire a coach.
Right. The rotating door.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's tough. personal, and this is kind of why, you look at the Isaiah Simmons pick and you're like, dude, that's unless, Chase Young or Isaiah Simmons, one of those two guys is going to be there. And that has to be the pick if they stay at 3, because you can plug those guys into basically any system you want and they're going to have success. Do I think that it necessarily sets them back? Not really, because you look at offensively, you're still going to have Stafford around. He's going to be able to carry you. You're still going to have receivers who are going to be able to get open. You're still going to be able to create room. Maybe they draft an offensive lineman who they really like. Maybe they got a guard in there who they really like. They've created some depth. I think that I don't think that it will set them back another 3 years and, you're scratch. I think that, let's say Patricia gets canned this year. Let's say they make the playoffs and Patricia gets canned, because that's possible, right? We've seen that. I mean, who was it that the Caldwell, right? Like made the playoffs.
Yeah, Caldwell, but he didn't make the playoffs the last year.
He didn't. Okay,
it was 9-7, 2 years in a row. Made the playoffs the previous year and didn't make the playoffs at 9-7 the next year.
Yeah, but I think that let's say Patricia does get canned. Let's say that they have a decent, 500 season, whatever you want to call it. You have to look at one of these young buck coaches. That's where this wave of football is going. It's the Cliff Kingsbury. It's the McVays, Florio down in Miami. Like those young coaches who have great experience and who have been in a great coaching tree, which is kind of what you wanted with Patricia. Maybe you swing and miss, but that has to be where you look next. Honestly, guys, this could be a really good situation. This just popped into my mind. Let's say Patricia does get canned this year and you're bringing a guy like Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma. I think everybody would be pretty stoked about that.
I'd be happy about that.
Right? But
Yep.
like we said, hey, I appreciate the fact that the Lions are like, Patricia says he needs his time. We're going to give him this time. We are going to see this through, because if you get, and it's just like you said, man, you get into that revolving door state and it sucks because you're just continuously in, 3-13, 4-12. And you're like, we're not getting any better. And we keep canning guys who say they can make it better. Maybe they need more time. Well, now Patricia's getting his time and it's time to put up or shut up. That's the way I look at this thing.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I think it's put up or shut up this year. He's got a lot of his guys in there, and barring some disaster that happens, I think that he's got to make it or he's got to go.
Yeah.
J-Mo, your question, sir.
Okay, so we've talked about the defensive line and the lack thereof, for lack of a better term. And if we don't, get a defensive end in the first round, what round do you think we should think about attacking that, and who do you think we should take? Because I think getting a defensive end, another pass rusher, is probably in our top 3 needs, along with offensive line.
Yeah,
And,
completely agree with that.
So, what do you think we should do?
So I think that I think that there is some depth when you start looking at, kind of these diamonds in the rough. And there's this dude out of Memphis who I'm going to shameless plug for. Luke G and I did a Bryce Huff review.
Oh, yeah. He followed me after you guys did that too.
I absolutely love that kid. And that could be a 4 or 5 round, 4th or 5th round guy. Now, if you're looking to go a little bit earlier, maybe you want to pick a guy with that first pick in the 2nd round. There's that cat out of Boise State, Curtis Weaver, he's a stud, and he could fit into that Lions system. He could easily put his hand in the dirt and be a 4-eye or be an edge guy. That would be a guy who, if they're looking to go early, maybe they look at picking somebody like him. Neville Gallimore out of Oklahoma, another dude who's a very active, he's more interior, but I think that he might have the size where you could bump him out, or you could throw him in a 1 or a 3 if you want to play a little bit of a different front. He could be a guy that they look to go to. But the one thing that's crazy about this year's draft is that there is a ton of depth. Like this draft is, I feel like I don't remember a draft that had this much depth. Like there is a lot of guys this year who could make an impact. That doesn't mean that you like that. That means even less of a give when you swing and miss this year. Like you got to hit your draft picks this year because there's some good football players out there. Did I kind of answer your question, or did I go off the beaten path?
No,
I'm just trying to figure out who we should take, because I do think defensive end is, after the pick at 3, if we didn't trade back, we're just taking a generational talent, so position doesn't really matter as long as it's not quarterback.
Mhm.
And then, second round, we might look at an offensive lineman. We might have another pick, or we might have 2 picks in the second round. And after we take that offensive lineman off the table, we have to go after a defensive end because
So
we don't really have any
a guy
defensive ends
that
on contract.
you want like a guy that I like that I think could fit into the Lions system.
Yeah, and day one and help us win some football games.
Day one guy. So if let's say that they make it, let's play a little hypothetical game. We'll play what ifs. Let's say they make that trade with the Chargers, they get a 6th, and they can miracle themselves into a late first round pick. I think that you kind of look at, Curtis Weaver's still a guy who I think's good. It just depends on what you value him at. Is he a late round guy? Chaseon's probably a little bit smaller. He might be able to do. He's 6'4", 250. I'm looking at his height weight right now. He's a guy who maybe you could fit into that stand up edge spot and play. The Zach Bond guy, the kid from Wisconsin. I mean, we all know they love their Big Ten guys. He's another dude who I think could fill in and play. I don't think necessarily that like AJ Epinesa and the kid from kid from Penn State, Gross Mattis. I'm going to hope that's how you pronounce it. I don't necessarily think that those guys fit directly with what the Lions want to do. Like Epinesa and Gross Mattis are both like 4'3" heavy edge guys. Like they're going to collapse a tackle and make a play and come down on a run play, but they're not. I don't necessarily think that they're going to go and get after the quarterback. So I would look at more of like, hey, you want a pass rusher? Go and get yourself a guy like Curtis Weaver who's going to turn the corner. Go and get a kid like Zach Bond who's had that experience playing at that like outside linebacker edge spot. Zach Bond's probably a little bit smaller than they want, but like Weaver is right in their wheelhouse. 6'3", 265. I mean, that's a thick dude. Like that's a kid who can go and make a play. So I could definitely see them picking a guy like Curtis Weaver late.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. Okay, and now we're going to OMG, it's Lions Talk with Michael.
If your starting quarterback goes down for, let's say, a 3-game period, and you have Chase Daniel going there, can you expect a 2-1 outcome for your starter missing 3 games?
Wow. That's tough, man. That's tough because it's like 2-1's a high expectation for a backup. I mean, but at the same time, you sign a backup who you think is capable of winning all 3 games. If your Q goes down, like if Stafford goes down, your entire game plan changes, right? You're not going to go out and expect Chase Daniels to be ripping 18-yard comebacks and humming in, whole shots like that. That's not Chase Daniels' game. It never has been. If Stafford goes down, you got to build you better hope that your running game is up to par, and you better hope that you can hammer power, hammer inside zone, get your run actions ready, take your calculated shots, and then on top of that, you got to hope that your defense is ready to go because they're going to shoulder a massive burden. Though I think Chase Daniels can go and win 3 straight, probably not. He's going to get himself into a 1-2, 2-1. You got to hope. And again, we don't even know what this like. If you're playing, like I don't know who the Lions play next year, like who they're out of conference games are, but if they're playing like the NFC West next year,
AFC South and NFC South.
Okay, so that's not too bad. AFC South, so you're going to be playing a damaged Houston team, right? Depending on what they end up looking like, who knows? Jacksonville, which I mean, we all know what Jacksonville's like. The Colts with Jacoby Brissett or Phillip Rivers has been pretty hyped about throwing picks as of the last couple of years. So it depends on who you're playing in that 3-game stretch. Do I think Chase Daniels can go and miracle himself into a 2-1? Absolutely. I don't think that they would have signed him for that amount of money if they couldn't. Do I think he's going to go out and wow me with a perfect passer rating? No. And I think you'd be I don't think a lot of people do think that,
Right. That kind of makes that running back pick in the second round, kind of a necessity because Stafford has not really been all too healthy the last 2 years. So I think that kind of piggybacks that
absolutely.
pick.
That's a really, really good point. I absolutely agree with that. And like I said, if it depends on the trend of the draft. You know what I mean? If they're sitting there early in the second or mid second, if they end up getting into a early first, late first round situation, and they can get a midway through the second pick, and J.K. Dobbins is sitting there, or Jonathan Franklin's sitting there, Clyde Edwards-Helaire,
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor. I was going to
I keep saying Jonathan. I didn't know Jonathan Franklin. Jonathan Taylor. Thank you. I've been saying his name the entire damn show, and nobody said anything. I feel like
no, I mean, like you said, Jonathan Franklin. I think you said it once, so I had to. After you said,
yeah, you only said it once.
My bad, man. Oh, Cam knows his football. Am I right, guys?
Jonathan Franklin is a boxer.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Then. I was watching.
And Detroit might need him too.
Yeah, I was watching the Foreman Ali fight the other day on ESPN, and it was just outstanding. But anyway, sorry, getting off. Yeah, it definitely makes that second round. Right, if J.K. Dobbins is there, maybe you go and take him, because I love J.K. Dobbins. I'm a big J.K. Dobbins guy. So, but yeah, absolutely, you're 100% right. Maybe that pick does get higher priority because Stafford hasn't been the healthiest of players.
All right, we're going to start going to questions from the subscribers now. So if you have your questions ready, and now's the time. We've been getting questions the whole time through, and usually at the end we don't get hardly any. So I'm going to start asking some of them that come up. Neville Gallimore isn't a guy who's being talked about. Is being talked about somebody in the first round. Is there any way the Lions could pick him up in the second round? Personally, I don't think he's going to be there. But what do you think, Cam?
Again, it depends on if they're staying pat at where their second rounder is, then he might be there. He played kind of like a straight up nose tackle at Oklahoma, but he did such a good job of taking on double teams. He has a great repertoire when it comes to what his pass rush moves are. He's kind of this really unique player. He's big. I just checked out his height weight. He's 6'2", 304, and moves pretty well if you've watched film on him. So. I do. I think it's possible that he's there at the start of two. But it depends where guys value him. Is he worth that late first round pick when maybe somebody got passed up that was projected to go higher? So I think it's possible that he's there in round two. Do I think it's probable? I would imagine no, just because I think of what his potential is.
Okay. So anybody else want to tackle that one? I don't want to exclude the panel either.
If the Lions start out the year healthy and go 0-3, should Patricia get fired?
Yeah, what do you think about that? I'm going to ask JMO just for right now. What do you think about that?
Bye.
Bye?
I might push it to 0-4, but 0-3 is just good enough. I mean, because I keep telling y'all, Martha Firestorm 4 ain't playing. She know her clock is ticking. If they start off bad, Patricia's not going to finish the season. If we start off 0-4, 0-3, if we start off 0-3, and then the next game is the New Orleans Saints, and we know we're going to lose, and then we go play the Saints, and they drill us. Yeah. He's gone.
Yeah, I agree with you, JMO. I agree. If this team is healthy and they're looking at 0-3, and they get Jacksonville week 2, you're like, dude, we got to start putting some wins together right now. I already think Patricia's on a short leash, and I think that everybody kind of agrees with that. If this team's healthy, if they have everything going in their direction coming out of the preseason, they got their O-lineman, they got a defense who they believe in, and Patricia's still finding a way to lose games, yeah, it's time to see you later.
Okay, here's a question. If we trade back and we get 2 first-rounders, would you consider taking Jordan Love if he dropped to us in the second round?
So a lot of people are really high on Jordan Love. I'm kind of not. I think that what he ran at Utah State, it's a very vertical passing game. It's a very Utah State has great athletes. And I don't know if people really know that, especially, if you're up in the Midwest, Utah State, I've watched film on them. I don't know where they get these kids from. These kids are freak athletes, and they're not good enough to get to the NFL, but for the league that they play in, they tear it up. I'm not as high on Jordan Love because of that. I think that he ran a really simple offense, and he made throws that if he was playing a better safety, they would have gotten picked. And I've seen that on multiple occasions. So for that, I would say no. I would say no. I don't think it's worth picking up Jordan Love if he dropped into the second round. I think that there's other guys out there who could probably make an impact now for the Lions.
Anybody want to take that question too? No? Okay.
I was about to say, I guess I'll take it if nobody else.
No, that's fine. I just don't want the panel being left out just because we're answering questions and stuff like that.
Yeah. D Hype says, will you trade the third with the Jags for the 9th Fournette and Yannick Ngakoue? First of all, I remember I brought up if we were trading with the Jags to try to somehow get Yannick too. I mean, I feel like Fournette is more of a worry than an addition, but it would be very, very interesting if we get 9 and 20.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting thing. What do you think, Hook?
So trading the third for their 9th Fournette and Yannick Ngakoue. Wow, that would be quite the trade. So you got to think you trade your third, you get depth at running back. You kind of solidify that edge spot with Yannick Ngakoue. The biggest thing with that though is for the Lions especially, you don't want a rental right now. Yannick Ngakoue is on a franchise tag. So you got to sign him or else he's going to eat up a ton of cap space. So you got to hope that he's willing to sign that long-term deal. But dude, that 9th overall as well, there's going to be somebody there at that 9th spot who's going to be a stud who can help this football team. Is he going to be, and this is the biggest thing, is it worth it to not pick a guy like Isaiah Simmons? That's the biggest thing to me.
I don't think it is. I don't know Ngakoue though. I like Ngakoue.
It depends because you're trading Simmons for Ngakoue and the 9th overall pick, and
right.
I don't know if that would be too bad because Ngakoue is a
that's
very
tough.
Great player.
It's enticing. That was a great question.
You still got the 9th overall pick. So just like Hookam just said, you're still going to get a stud player at 9, especially in this draft.
That's what I'm saying.
And since you got that rusher, you might want to go offensive line.
We probably would get more than just their first round pick. We probably would get more picks.
Yeah, so let me put this. I'm gonna send this out there. If you don't like it, you can send it right back. Let's say they get Yannick Ngakoue, right? They get Fournette, they get the 9th overall, and one of those top tackles is there, like a Wirfs or McKee Becton, and you can really solidify this offensive line. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about putting this offense in the right position to win. We're talking about getting this defense in the right frame of mind, putting some pass rushing out there, and maybe we don't pick up that linebacker safety hybrid. That's a generational guy, but you just add a huge piece to that defense with Ngakoue. You add a huge piece to that offensive line with a Becton or a Wirfs or a Jedrick Wills or whoever you want to put in there. That's it. That's a very enticing pick. That would be hard for if I was playing GM mode right now on Madden. It'd be tough to say no to that one. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
How much water do you feel the Ian Rappaport rumor is that the Patriots want to do a trade with the Lions? Keep in mind, Ian Rappaport worked at the Boston Gazette. Do you think there's any truth to the rumors that they want to go all the way up to 3? That for me, it makes no sense. But
yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, man. I just don't. I don't know, dude. I with the whole Brady stuff this year, I lost so much respect for just every news report that came out where you're like, it was ridiculous. Brady's in Nashville. He's going to sign with the Titans. And then 4 hours later, it's no, he was at his house in Connecticut. Where are you getting this information? So it's just I don't know. I lost a lot of respect for reporters in that sense. But I personally, I don't think that there's any weight to it. I think that trade doesn't work out for either side. I think that Detroit in a weird way, I don't remember what he asked now. Detroit in a weird way, gives up too much. And then at the same time, New England,
Detroit-New England trade.
Yeah, and New England doesn't get enough. It's weird. It's it's one of those situations where you're this doesn't work out for either side. Why would they do it? So I don't put a lot of water into it. I don't hold that in a high standard. in my
I
eyes.
feel like the media wants them to get the number 3 overall pick than it actually being a reality, because they're like, oh, you lost Tom Brady, so you now have to replace him with another generational player, no matter what, because you lost Tom Brady, and obviously y'all lost Tom Brady. I feel bad for you, but so
I
I know
don't.
you got Bill
I'm just kidding.
Belichick. I mean, I know you got Bill Belichick, but I'm just saying Tom Brady has won a lot of big games, and you can't just
dude.
replicate that.
Love
So.
Brady.
Yeah. So I think it's more the media wanting them to get the 3rd overall pick. That's not something that we're not about to trade. That not with New England.
That
just
would be
because
insane.
we're friends.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if that was the case, I need your entire draft, and I need another 2nd round pick next year, and then I want every good player you got.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, in a weird way, like I said, New England doesn't get enough for that to make sense. And Detroit gives up way too much. And then at the end of the day, you're like, why are we trying to make this deal? Like, neither of us want to make this happen. So, like I said, I don't put a lot of weight into that personally.
To me, it makes no sense because actually New England could probably trade us their entire draft this year, and still we come out on the short end in points.
Yeah.
According to the trade system, we still come out short. So personally, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for me. They're just way too far down to come up that high.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't like it a lot.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, so let's go to something else here. We're gonna ask a few more questions and we're gonna get out of here. We've been here for almost 2 hours. So
Jeez.
I really hope we draft AJ Epinesa at the 35th pick. Do you think he would start?
Sorry, I was just reading the rest of this text here too.
Yeah, it's about Von Miller getting COVID-19.
Do I think he would start? I mean, you don't. Yes, because you drafted him at the 35th overall. I think that they would go into that situation. They're sold on him. They're like, this guy's going to play that heavy 4-eye for us, and he's going to just collapse everything inside. And because of that, yeah, absolutely, I would expect him to start. If he's there, that would kind of be, like I said, it'd be a good situation. Depends on who you're taking at the 3. But, you get into another spot where you're like, all right, we get Isaiah Simmons at the 3, and then we get AJ Epinesa at 35, and that defense looks pretty damn good now. Where it's like you address 2 major keys on that. And like I said, and we got to take everything I say, not with a grain of salt, but like, yeah, AJ Epinesa played in a 4-3 in college. Like, does that fit with what Detroit wants to run? No. But can he get coached up? Absolutely. And he could be a very effective football player. Like, there are football coaches for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, it's just because it doesn't fit like doesn't mean it won't ever happen. So that would be a steal. If you get Simmons and Epinesa in rounds 1 and 2, you're feeling pretty damn good about yourself.
What do you think about Jordan Elliott? Funky Nuts ass.
Jordan Elliott. I got to do some digging now because I'm blacking
Yeah, me
out
too, because I don't even know. Anybody know who Jordan Elliott is?
Oh, he's the Mizzou guy.
Oh, yeah.
Damn, I to be honest with you, Funky Nuts, first off, I've seen you in here a ton, and I love that name every time I see it.
Me too.
But what's funny? His name used to be so normal before that. And he's like, well, yeah, this is my new account. I lost my other account. I'm like, this was your other account?
That's my burner, but now it's my main account. I don't know enough about him to have a opinion. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I feel like you guys
make sure you guys drop your questions in there, because you guys always have the questions throughout the show. The moment we ask for questions, it's like y'all go. So make sure you drop those questions in there. And if you haven't liked the video, make sure you get them likes up.
Absolutely. And I'm just gonna rapid fire some of these because it's getting like, no, I'm just kidding. So do you think Khalil Tate from Arizona could be a late round quarterback that Bevel could groom?
Yeah, so Khalil Tate is a dude that I actually watched a decent amount when he was at Arizona. If he's late, like Khalil Tate is a freak athlete. Like if you can get him to be like a legit backup where he's learning the offense, he's got a really good grasp on things, he's reading defense as well, then yeah, why not pick him up in a late round if you've addressed everything else? Like I said before, quarterback's not a top priority in my eyes for this football team. But if he's there late and you're like, we're getting a freak athlete, who knows what he could turn into, then sure, go ahead and take him. And like I said, that offense that Bevel has, it's very much so like Seattle, where with Stafford, they don't move their quarterback as much as you do with a guy like Russ. But with a guy like like Khalil Tate, you can do a lot of the same things you do with Russell Wilson as far as mobility goes, but he has to have everything else that Russell Wilson does as far as being able to throw the football on the run, being able to put the ball in the right spot, being able to read a good defense. Russell Wilson throws one of the best vertical balls in the game today. So it's tough to make that comparison right now. But if they look at him and they're like, he's got the talent to do it, we're going to develop this dude, then sure, go for it.
Okay, Braden Mann is a punter, and we had him on our the Senior Bowl team. So, do you think they will draft Braden Mann, or do you think he'll be after?
Our punter too.
Yeah,
no, and I know you guys, Sam Martin, right? That was his name.
Yeah, Sam Martin. He signed with Denver.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll draft a punter. It probably, I mean, obviously late. It'd be a 6th or 7th round pick. He's pretty decent though, and they had him on the Senior Bowl team, so it's like they have that experience with him. I could see him spending a 7th rounder on him, 6th or 7th rounder on him, sure.
Yeah, it makes sense actually. You know, I think we have. Do we have 2 7ths? I thought we had. They traded so much now. I don't know what they have.
We got 9 draft picks. That's why I'm like, we got too many draft picks. Make some moves. For real, like, I told you, give me 5 great players and call it a day. I don't need 9 players and 3 of them not going to even make the team.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me either, man. I get you on that. That makes perfect sense for me. If the Lions draft Isaiah Simmons at 3, do you think we trade Jared Davis to New England? Second part of that question, would you want Jared Davis in New England?
Damn, I mean, Belichick, it's weird because there's been a number of guys who Belichick signed and have been like, who is this? And not necessarily because, like, obviously we know who Jared Davis is. If they draft, I could see him trying to package that, yeah, but I wouldn't expect like New England's maybe like a late 4th for him or whatever New England's got, which at that point maybe it is worth the trade. You know, if Belichick does want to trade that high, it's definitely possible. Patricia, like, there's definitely that coaching tree where Belichick's like, hey, he's going to fit into what you want to do, and you guys can make something out of him. It could be like a Van Noy-ish situation. Obviously, it was different as far as coaching goes, but it's 100% possible.
Okay, would you be happy if Stafford went down early? Which why the hell would we want Stafford to go down at all? And we got the number 1 pick, and they want Trevor Lawrence. So what's your opinion of Trevor Lawrence? I don't even want to go into Stafford getting hurt because I don't want that at all.
Let me.
Go for
we're
it.
not gonna respond to the first question, but yeah, Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, I think he's gonna be amazing. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think he's very good. I'm bought into all of the hype of Trevor Lawrence. So if that happened, it would be kind of a good and a bad thing, but it's not gonna happen. So stop dreaming. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence is gonna be a great quarterback, unless something happened to him, like he gets hurt or something.
Yeah, I like Trevor Lawrence. I noticed a little bit of accuracy issues, but like I do like how he plays, and I think that he's been put in a really good position to win football games. Which obviously, like at Clemson, the kid has done what he's needed to do to win or be in a position to win a football game every single time. Every single time he's in a big game, he's done what's needed to go. And like every time there's a big drive, he's making the right throws. He's making the right decisions. He is going to be a very good quarterback prospect. Now, if I dig, I'm sure that I could find things that I dislike about him. But dude's pretty damn good. Like there's no doubt about that. So
what do you think? I'm going to ask you this one though. What is a comparison between him and Stafford?
Between Trevor Lawrence and Stafford?
Yeah. Would we be getting somebody that's better than Stafford? That's what I'm asking. I mean, it takes a while to develop. What do you think?
I don't know about better, but maybe just as good.
Yeah.
So Stafford's a franchise quarterback that's like immensely uber talented. I think Trevor Lawrence will be the same thing. A franchise quarterback that's immensely uber talented, and he's mobile. Maybe that will help. He's not like mobile, but he can move. But like, to me, Trevor Lawrence is like the best QB prospect probably since when Mahomes and Watson came out.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be a good deal. You know, I don't know if he'll be better, but he'll be just as good when we talk about talent.
Right.
Depending on the team he on.
Yeah, that's a huge point too. That's a really good point. But the thing is that like he's not going to come into the league as good as Stafford. He's going to come into
Right.
the league as a rookie. So in that sense, you take a step back for hoping that 3-4 years down the road, he's better than Stafford. But again, like I've said, Stafford has not been the problem with these guys. So it's like, and I don't think Stafford will be the problem for, another 2-3 or longer than that, 2-3 years or whatever. Like I still think that he's going to be a good, serviceable quarterback. So I would not, even if Stafford did, I mean, if he did get injured this year, you're like, dude, this is a lot of injuries that are mounting up. But Trevor Lawrence is going to be good. I guess I'll close it on that with that question.
That sounds good. We're getting close to being able to close down the show. We've been almost 2 hours now, so pretty close. Anything else? I don't see anything else that. Okay. All right. So I don't see anything else going on. Let's get final thoughts from everybody, because I think that's we're about ready to close the show. Tim, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Well, I know it's a make or break a year for Patricia, and I hope that they can make it, but not just this year. I want a winning franchise for years to come.
That makes perfect sense. What about you, JMO? Final thoughts?
I would say I know Hook Cam is becoming a regular, but it was nice to come and talk to you and get your insights, man. I greatly appreciate it. And I don't really like what you said about Matt Patricia, because it doesn't give me what I tell you, because I really feel like this is the last season I can be all in, because after this we gonna be trash, because something that had like Stafford to get traded or something. Yeah. I want to believe in him so badly, because I just feel like if this season doesn't work out, they're going to blow it up, and then we're going to be back in purgatory.
Yeah.
And so I want to believe in him so much, and I thought Hook Cam would at least give me some confidence, but he was very honest. He's very genuine. He's not going to lie, and it is what it is. Hopefully we can do better. Hopefully we can draft some great players. Bob Quinn, is up to you now.
Nomus, what are your final thoughts?
Oh yeah, man, it's been a great show. Thank you again, Hook Cam. Again, like JMO said, I know you've been in here a lot, so it's good to have you on here for today to answer a lot of questions.
Yeah,
but I think we go see what direction this team is really going by the draft next week. After that first pick, I think we all need to still be patient, whether it's Simmons or lineman, because you never know exactly what direction they'll be going. Because I can remember getting T.J. Hawkinson last year. I'm like, man, I'm not doubting the player, but what direction they're going? Then they went defense like 7 straight, almost 4 or 5 straight picks. So it's like we have to wait and see what happens. And everybody, if you haven't given us a like yet, please do so. And thank y'all for coming in. God bless everybody in the chat and on the panel. Have a good night.
We have a question again from I'm Not the Hacker. It says, what do you think about Blaylock? I think that's what he's talking about.
Well, he has been visited a lot by the Lions. I had seen reports on him when I was just searching some random things. I'm like, who's this Blaylock guy? They must be interested in him heavily. Will he be in our top pick somewhere or almost mid draft day? It's a possibility. He seems like a nice player. I don't know too much about that program as good as I do some others, but whoever does have film on him, I'm quite sure they can elaborate. That's my perception of it.
Okay, what do you think, Hook Cam? I just want to get that really quick.
Yeah, who are we talking? Who is Blaylock?
Offensive lineman, correct?
No, he's a D lineman, Russ Blaylock.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, it was just the spelling. There we go.
I'm not 100% dialed in on him. I feel so bad about that. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay. All right, Hook Cam, I'm going to have your final thoughts, and then I'll go last, and we'll end the show.
Okay. First and foremost, thanks for having me on, man. You, the Lions community has been like the most welcoming community. So, love you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I had a ton of fun. Love talking football. I don't mean to Patricia. He's a smart dude. He's going to figure things out. I have confidence that he is going to get the Lions on the right path. I don't think that they're going to start the season 0-3. I think that they're going to start off and be hot again. And you got to remember there was so much that went wrong when your starting queue goes down. So I think that they're going to have them going in the right direction. But big draft for the Lions this Thursday, man. And I think that they're going to make the right decisions. I trust both of those guys. So we'll see what happens. Thanks for having me on, and appreciate everybody for the support.
Yeah. Final thoughts. I'm sorry, we don't know who Backlock is, and I'm not trying to be funny. Just I don't know. So does anybody on the panel know who Backlock is?
Okay, so it is the TCU guy. It's Ross,
the TCU
Ross Blacklock. Let me see. So first and foremost, I don't know. You guys are getting a little inside look. He's 6'4", 305 as an interior guy. So with that size, that tells me obviously he's not going to line up head up on a nose tackle. That's what you got, or on a center. That's what you got Danny Shelton for, and maybe you want him to compete there. I would put him at that edge spot in like a Trey Flowers role and see what he can do. Depends on what his mobility looks like. Depends on how violent he is with his hands. I mean, he's pretty damn big though, 6'4", 305. But I promise you, I'm going to take a look, and I'll be in the chat one of these days, and I'll type in a little what I think about Blacklock.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. And it's a Sunday night, and we had a lot of people in the chat. We had JMO here with us, Tim and Noma's Jay, and we really appreciate you guys showing up. Also, we had OMG It's Lions Talks. Please subscribe to every channel that we have here. And Hook Cam, I really appreciate this. It's a little different being in the spotlight and having all the questions directed at you, but you did a really good job, and we appreciate you being here. And for everybody else that's trying to survive this thing that we got going on, just listen to more Lion stuff. You'll make it through. All right, guys. Really appreciate everybody coming out. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. Thank